I have links to the official material in the description and encourage people to support the official release. This is Emblematic's commentary on episode 2 of InuYasha. If you've not seen my commentary on episode 1, you'll probably want to watch that first, or you might be confused. The playlist is linked below in the description.
Also, the copyright robots have forced me to butcher a lot of the footage. You'll see a lot of it is flipped or discolored. But you can watch a purer, easier to watch edit on Rumble. It's linked below.
Seekers of the Sacred Jewel.
So episode 1 is so engrossing for most people because it's kind of your quintessential fairy tale opening. So you have a feminine heroine's journey set up and a masculine hero's journey set up for, well, what's going to be hopefully a delightful fairy tale romp. But most fairy tales are usually either one or the other. It's either a heroine's journey or a hero's journey, or geared towards the feminine or geared towards the masculine. InuYasha is very, almost evenly both. Though it's obvious that Rumiko was more building the thing for like male audiences, because they were typically the consumers of manga. So kind of mostly geared towards teenage boys. But that's kind of what makes the series so interesting, is that to find a female artist who not only has very little filter for her unconscious mind when she puts her art on the page, but also gears it towards adolescent men, is actually very rare. And I think that's kind of what's most interesting about InuYasha, is it's the female unconscious talking to a male audience. So it's presented in a way that males are going to be more willing to understand, but the actual beliefs therein are from a female's perspective. And you'll see that a lot. You'll see, like, with how love is treated in the story, it's honed in through the female looking glass, for sure. You can actually see this as well with things like InuYasha, leveling up, so to speak. Like, he doesn't train like Rocky. InuYasha doesn't really train at all. In the manga or the anime, it's like basically no practice is ever done. It's just he gets a power through overcoming some kind of challenge. Because to the female brain, that's just kind of how masculine potency and ability works, is you don't train hard for it for 1,000 hours. It's you overcome a challenge of life, and you kind of are just granted powers in such a way. Most other shonens are big into having characters train up, because they're usually written by men, and it's, well, I need my male hero to get stronger. How do I do that? Well, I got to show him training. That just comes naturally to you if you're a male artist. In the feminine mind, like, the hard work that goes into the successes are kind of overlooked, and the important thing is, how do I help him get there? At least if she has, a positive feminine posture in your life, whoever this person might be. If she's negative, then she won't see the work, and also she'll denigrate any successes that you do have. This isn't good enough or whatever, right? But if she's supportive, if she's someone like Kagome, yeah, you might have put 1,000 hours into this or that or the other, but I don't really care. I just care about the success that you have now, and how do we purpose that towards a greater good. And the difference between that kind of positive feminine posture or negative feminine posture is, well, is she following the path of wisdom? Is she becoming Lady Sophia, or is she just a succubus? And Kagome, along her journey, will have to learn. How do I bring out the best in InuYasha? And as we're about to see in episode 2, it does not start off well.
Pay no heed to InuYasha, child.
The sacred jewel makes monsters more powerful. Is it cursed?
I hate having to wait. And I hate the smell of you.
You really tried to hit me just now, didn't you?
Somehow I knew that it would eventually come to this. Prepare yourself!
Prepare for what?
So we keep getting lines here from InuYasha about, dying or preparing to die. Obviously he's essentially just been dead for 50 years and does not really care about his well-being that much. Men injured of the heart usually don't. But Kagome keeps kind of rejecting the hypothesis of death, just outright. In the first episode, he asks her, are you willing to die?
And what about you? Are you ready to die yet?
Which she rejects and obviously removes the arrow.
Given the choice, I choose to.
And then the line actually is changed here in the anime, but in the manga, he asks her again, are you prepared to die, like, for the jewel? And she says, how can I be prepared for that? So she's kind of this avatar of life, or at least rejecting death, and he's her antagonist in that. That would go back to the waters. So waters and femininity. Obviously, there's the waters of life that come with birth, which is one of the reasons why woman has been associated with water, because of the fountain of life is found within the womb, essentially. Which is, now that she's on the cusp of womanhood, having now entered that world, that's sort of what she brings to the table, is, the cup of life, the opening of the waters. That's why baptismal waters are also the waters of rebirth. That's what that means.
Now it's mine. The heck are these?
So necklaces typically create bonds or obligations between the wearer and the person for whom the necklace belongs. Though it's given by Kaede, obviously it belongs to Kagome. She has full power over it, as we're going to see in a moment. Kaede actually doesn't have any power over it other than being able to put it upon him. They also have connotations of orderliness, so bringing together a series of disparate objects into one circular existence has sometimes been analogous to the one and manifestation that revolves around the one. Going back to what we were talking about the circle, necklaces share that meaning. And consequently, breaking a necklace indicates kind of chaos, disorder, or otherwise tearing away from the absolute being, from the one, from God. What's perhaps most interesting about it here, though, is that essentially what we've seen is Kagome has passed through the square opening to a new world where she will begin her personal journey along the feminine path. And so in the same way, InuYasha is passing through the circular opening to a new world, where the opening of a necklace or any kind of circular object like that can be used as a passing between from one world to another world. In the world before, InuYasha was not really bound to anyone other than himself. In this way now, he is bound to Kagome, so he's entering a new world, and that begins his journey along the masculine path. So one passes through the square opening, InuYasha passes through the circular opening. Together, if you bring together the circle and the square, you either get the quaternity, which is a symbol of wholeness and centrality and kind of total cosmic knowledge of the self, or expression, full individuation sometimes. The quaternity, right, the cross, harkens to that. Or you can have a mandala. So the square and the circle creates a mandala, which was an opening to the unconscious or the esoteric, the hidden things of the world. It's actually a common remedy to artist block. If you're an artist, you can't think of what to draw, you can draw just a basic mandala upon the page, and then just allow yourself to draw whatever you want inside of that mandala. And that's a very common remedy. Artists will frequently just start springing up with ideas. It's kind of the symbol to enter into the unconscious world, to see the deeper things or to express the deeper things. And so kind of again, we're seeing that the square and the circle are coming together here to indicate passing to a new world, right? And you might be thinking, well, that's kind of a stretch. I don't know about that one. But necklaces share a lot of properties with prayer beads. The symbolism of prayer beads in any religion is that each orb or each sphere along the path of the prayer beads represents a world or a state of being, a status. And when you recite your prayers or your incantations or whatever, and you move from one world to the other, It's a symbol of evolution. Of course, the prayer bead is a circle, so it goes on forever. So it's evolution and revolution, and you never are finished. But nevertheless, you're passing between worlds towards a greater good or higher state, towards transcendence. The thread that binds them together is analogous to the Sutratma or the Holy Spirit, or, I mean, every religion has the concept of what is essentially the Holy Spirit, the kind of binding unilateral force of God or of the One that sort of holds form together and passes beneath all of creation to kind of justify it. It's also called the silver cord. You can look that up. And it's analogous to the thread that runs between the spheres of a set of prayer beads. So your journey is always undergirded by this Holy Spirit or this Sutratma or whatever, this universal, unmanifested spirit. Now, it's not actually a necklace. The anime doesn't say, but the manga does. It's actually a rosary. It's prayer beads. So the necklace he's wearing is prayer beads. It's mostly beads with fangs. And fangs are phallic objects, so they represent masculine potency and ability and penetrating power. Right? That's why if you dream that you're losing your teeth, it's usually a symbol that you're feeling impotent about something, that you don't have power in a certain situation or with a certain person, where you otherwise feel ineffectual. You don't have the ability to bite. So InuYasha is essentially wearing a set of prayer beads interlaced with these symbols of masculine ability. But anyway, yeah, that was just to prove my point that the necklace is a passing between worlds. Beads on a thread will almost always indicate that. So much like when you're praying on a prayer rope or prayer beads, and you're evolving to your next stage of transcendence, you're moving towards ascending to the solar logos to become the heroic male, the Olympian male. InuYasha is basically cursed with that to be around his neck. That's what's happening here with InuYasha receiving that around his neck, binding him to Kagome, and the point is to ascend, to follow the hero's journey. And of course he's a dog, so he needs a collar.
Quickly, child, the word of subjugation.
Huh? What word?
It matters not. Your word has power to hold his spirit.
A word to hold his spirit? But how will I know which one? Sit, boy! Sit, boy! Sit, boy! Sit, boy!
Now this is our first introduction to the power of the word, which is the name of the symbol, the power of the word. And the power of the word is hugely important in InuYasha.
What do you know? It worked!
What the heck is this thing?
I'm sorry, InuYasha, but even you lack the power to remove it.
We'll see about that. I'd come up there and finish you off if you didn't look half dead already.
The word, please.
Sit, boy!
There are a number of instances where just speaking brings about a certain reality, usually along magical grounds, much like the rosary or the necklace that he's wearing. So it comes down to the question of what is a word? Well, a word is an expression of the mind. It's an expression of the self, of the being, sort of imposed upon the world to affect it. Whether it's me trying to, change somebody's mind or to garner an idea or whatever. The word is myself, an extension of myself through the breath of life, pulsed out into creation to affect change upon it. So the word is myself, but it's also not myself. It is a type of dispersion. This is how Christ is the Word of God, right? He's God, but he's also the Word of God. He's an expression of the divine mind and speaks creation into existence, right? That's what happens in Genesis. God speaks and the world is made. Things are manifested. And a number of supreme deities and a number of religions do the same thing. They will speak reality into existence. The word has this power, and it is delivered by the breath, which is the breath of life. In the Christian mysticism, that's the Holy Spirit, the breath of life. So the Holy Spirit or the breath of life and the word are intertwined. They're inextricably linked. So the word is the mind's ability to interact with things outside itself. It creates its own externality, right? I can extend beyond myself using my words, right? That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm speaking to you via the internet. I'm able to reach far, far outside myself, to influence, to change, and to be beyond myself. My being now extends further than just the physical form because I'm speaking to you now. My being is now, in a sense, sort of secondarily manifested within your home or wherever you're listening to this. Right, you've heard me talk about the solar logos. Well, what is the logos? The logos in Greek is the word. It's also reason and the intellect. So it's that expression of mind once again. It's also the depths of meaning, because meaning is not intrinsic, it's interpolated and interpreted. Right, this is Seller's Myth of the Given if you're into philosophy. So that's fundamentally what the word means. The power of the word here, specifically sit, it's in Japanese it's osuari, which is like specifically the command to sit for like a dog. You wouldn't use that for like a person. So it's a bit funnier in the manga because it's like she's literally speaking to a dog. But what happens is, as Kaede says, right, it subdues his spirit. It holds him down. It changes his very status from, an actionable, rowdy male to now a sort of inert male, although the point is always to render his chaos in a more orderly fashion. But it serves to highlight kind of Kagome's immaturity, because most of the time that she uses the command, we'll see in the series, is when she's just annoyed by him. He says something that she doesn't like, and she sort of lets her emotions get the better of her, and so she abuses the power of the word. But the power of that word is based upon her feminine foundations, which is being reincarnated Kikyo, right? Kikyo held a special power over InuYasha without the need of a rosary, of a necklace. She didn't need that. She held power over him just by her presence, just by her very being, because he loved her. And now Kagome has these spiritual powers within her, within the centrality of her being, that are escaping. And this is one way in which they escape, when she uses or abuses the power of the word to subjugate InuYasha.
Well then, shall we head home?
That was easy. Wish I'd said it earlier.
It's fun to note here that a bridge is obviously a transition period between two spaces, between two worlds, you could say. And InuYasha sort of fails it by Kagome's power of the word and falls through it directly. But also, funnily enough, he falls into a body of water, which, again, the surface of waters, it's a new world, a transitionary plane that you pass through. And in a sense, he's kind of being submerged by the feminine substance, by water. So those two objects surrounding this one event, there's a lot of meaning.
I noticed you're rebuilding the houses wrecked by Mistress Centipede.
Now that the sacred Shikon no Tama is back among us, far worse than Mistress Centipede will come to claim it.
Worse than yesterday?
And not just demons. There are humans whose hearts are more evil still, and only the jewel has the power to make real their petty, grasping ambitions.
Speaking of petty, what are you still doing here?
I'm waiting for the jewel.
Why do you want the jewel anyway? It seems to me you're strong enough as it is. What power can the jewel give you don't already have?
Ah, but he's just half-demon.
Now, the half-demon thing has often been misconstrued by more modern people, that, it's an allegory for racism or races. It's like, not really, no. You see this theme a lot, actually, in ancient stories. People who are like half-gods or half-demons or whatever. And the point of that was never to do with racism. I mean, the vast majority of human beings were extremely racially conscious. But rather, it's more a case of he's a demigod, Right? Demigods were usually legendary warriors who died on the battlefield. They were revered as demigods, or cults would form around a leader who was somehow a demigod. He shared blood with the gods. The point is that if you're a demigod, if you're half god, half man, then you're closer to the heavens. You're kind of an ascended human being, but at the same time, you're still very contingent upon the world around you and limited by those factors. In the case of a half demon, in most cultures, that would indicate that you're kind of like halfway between the human world and the underworld. But that actually doesn't work out kind of really that way in InuYasha, or really even Japan. Demons aren't quite the same there culturally. They can be. You can have like underworld monsters of darkness that are, malevolent spirits out to get you. But you can also have demons that are more kind of neutral or even positive in Japan, right? Like the tanuki or the zashiki, I think they're called, are examples of like more positive spirits that are called demons. I mean, they're not actually called demons. Yokai is the word, and demon is just one possible translation of that word that you can use, and that's just the one that happened to be the popular translation option for English. The series of InuYasha specifically does have seemingly different classifications of demons. It's kind of got the more lowly, monstrous demons that are often easily annihilated. And these are obviously just lowly creatures that have crept up from the underworld and just kind of cause people problems and serve mayhem. Then you have kind of more higher demons like InuYasha, who seem to have a lot more autonomy and can follow moral codes and are more rational. Generally, they're more intelligent and kind of more human-like, and they'll often have human forms, and they can kind of switch between those two. And then there's like a third kind of ascended or greater demon, which we'll get into later. That's like InuYasha's father was one. To become a greater demon is to kind of assume some sort of great challenge and overcome yourself, and you kind of evolve into a great demon. At which point you're usually in some sort of position of like rulership. So we shouldn't think of demons in InuYasha or in Japan in like a strictly Western or Christian context, because that just wouldn't be accurate. We shouldn't say like, oh, well, they're all servants of hell. I remember my Christian parents growing up were put off by the fact that everyone in InuYasha was a demon, and I kind of had to assure them that they have a different conception of that in Japan than is accurate here. But so InuYasha is in a state between one and the other, and he feels like he's unfulfilled being in between. He's kind of half of each, so he can't really accept himself. And we'll see that pretty much nobody in his life was ever able to accept him either, but we'll get to that.
You know what? I'm sick of hearing some dried-up witch I just met talk like she knows me.
So ye don't remember. I thought as much. I'm younger sister to Kikyo, she who bound ye to the tree, Kaede.
So you're the brat, huh?
50 years have passed, and I have grown old.
Kikyo must be pushing 100. Sure glad I don't gotta worry about being old. Not for a while.
Kikyo didn't worry either. Kikyo died. It was on the same day she shot ye with the arrow.
Kaede literally trying to rekindle the fire in InuYasha's heart.
Gee, sorry to hear it. Not that I really care or nothing. It's one less thing for me to worry about.
I wouldn't let my guard down just yet, InuYasha. I now know that Kagome is the reincarnation of my sister.
Huh?
And so while InuYasha is in a state between two types, it's revealed to him that Kagome also is, because she's the reincarnation of Kikyo. And like I said, she's going to have to differentiate herself from Kikyo to be Kagome and only Kagome, and that'll be part of her journey. What's interesting is that will not be the case for InuYasha going forward. This is obviously way later in the series, but down the line he doesn't need to differentiate as one or the other. Rather, Kagome insists on a synthesis between them.
I love you as a half-demon, InuYasha! To be honest, I like you just the way you are. There's nothing wrong with staying just the way you are.
And so that again harkens back to the feminine unconscious. InuYasha doesn't have to differentiate himself as one or the other, but Kagome does, as the female character. Right? A male artist would be tempted to reverse that InuYasha should embrace either one state or the other state, and that Kagome would have to have some kind of synthesis. So again, you can kind of see the presentation of the story along gendered lines. It's not like a hard and fast rule or anything that if a male did this, he would do it in the reverse. I mean, it could go any number of ways. Just more, he would be more likely to do it in the reverse, because it is really a double standard, right? If you're going to be totally equal about the whole thing, it's like, well, either both Kagome and InuYasha have to just accept one side and push for that side, and the story is satisfied when they've achieved that state, or they both have to achieve some kind of synthesis between the two states that they're in. But that's not what we get. It's unequal because men and women are different, and how they view each other is different. When a woman seeks a man and she says, I could fix him, and she likes the bad boy parts, and she likes his, bestial nature, but she wants to tame it. It's like, typically they don't want to get rid of it. They want to refocus it towards something good, which is essentially what's going to happen, is that Kagome wants that synthesis between the two for InuYasha. But for herself, that's not what she wants. She wants to be her own and departed from Kikyo in a sense. Though she'll follow in her footsteps and her occupation, she will take a stand and say, no, I am Kagome. So to Kagome, that status is more of like an oppressive state bearing down upon her, the weight of who am I and Kikyo. Whereas for InuYasha, it's treated more as like a delusion, that it's a problem that he's between two states. He believes it's something that holds him back. He believes it's something that oppresses him. And Kagome sort of lifts the cloud to say, no, that's not true. So that's, again, that kind of feminine unconscious peering through. And the female unconscious is actually masculine. It's called the animus. Whereas the male unconscious is actually feminine, called the anima. And so that would explain why it sort of is biased in favor of InuYasha, that he sort of doesn't have to overcome that same obstacle that Kagome does. He can just he just needs to learn to accept himself as he is. So Rumiko's animus is basically giving him kind of a pass in that way, because it itself is masculine, but it won't give that pass to our female main character.
And it isn't just because ye resemble her.
Stop it!
The jewel of 4 souls was in your body. That alone is proof enough. It's up to ye now, child, to take over its protection.
Me? Protecting this? Who am I kidding?
Right away, the responsibilities of Kikyo are foisted upon Kagome, and so this is kind of just right off the bat, we're told that, oh, you're just her reincarnation, and now you have Kikyo's job. So immediately that oppression is clear. Kagome is not really allowed to be her own person, and she doesn't know really who she is, and has this great responsibility that she doesn't know how to do.
She's the reincarnation of who?
There's something otherworldly about her.
About who?
They're saying that girl there is really Kikyo.
That's Kikyo-sama for those who respect her.
Me? I knew it was Lady Kikyo all along.
Kikyo-sama's come back just as she left.
I gotta get out of here.
The villagers highlighting what I just said there. They're just literally calling her somebody else.
She died, and I never knew. Where'd you get all that stuff from?
The villagers gave it to me. Why not come down from there and help me eat it?
Whatever you're up to, I ain't buying it.
Buying what? Listen, it's fair to say you don't like me, right?
Way more than fair.
Whatever. It's not even me you dislike. It's this Kikyo person. I'm not Kikyo, okay? I'm Kagome. Can't we just call a truce?
Ha! I knew it! What you don't get is that I'm only after the jewel!
So if you don't know, the series is fundamentally it's a fairy tale, but it's a love story. Rumiko Takahashi loves her characters that are supposed to fall in love, but they hate each other to start with. That's the whole Tristan and Isolde. That's the classic pairing of two people that are at each other's throats. They don't like each other, but then they learn to love each other. And it was said that the truest or deepest love is always born out of hatred, right? The Apostle Paul hated Christ and he burned Christians, but then when he converted, he had the deepest love of Christ out of all of them. And in Eros, the opposites attract, to use the old phrase, your complement, the thing that frustrates you, is really what you're going to be drawn to. A lot of people make the mistake of like, well, I gotta find someone who's like me and I get along with, and, we have the same sense of humor and the same style of dress, and we like the same music. And it's like, well, that makes a really great relationship. It's like, it's a good relationship for, 3, 4, or 5 years maybe. But then it dies, it peters out, it goes stagnant, and you drift apart, and people don't get it. Like, why does that happen? It's like, well, it's because you're too similar. True Eros, you look for your complement. You look for someone who is not like you, someone who has the same goals as you, right? Who wants the same things and embodies a proper archetypal opposite, right? If you're male, then you want someone who embodies a proper archetypal female. But other than those things, you want someone who actually like frustrates you, who's different to you, that you don't even really understand, right? That's kind of one of the great, beautiful things about love is like not really understanding the other person. If you've got a girlfriend or a wife and she says something to you and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's good. You want that, where it's just like her mind is completely different to yours in every regard. But she follows your lead and she wants to build the same life as you. She has the same goals as you. That's what you want. Those are the longest lasting marriages. The longest lasting marriages are the ones where people are with their complements. If you're someone who's like shy and introverted, look for someone who's bubbly and outgoing. You don't look for another shy introvert. It's like, well, we'll stay in all the time. It'll be great. And we'll do all of our autistic nerdy things together. It's like, yeah, that's great for a couple of years, but then it gets boring. You will think, no, I'm super autistic. I'm so drawn. I will just do it forever. Like, no, you won't. And part of the reason for that is that, especially for women, they're really keyed into this. A lot of the boringness comes from, I know what he's thinking. I know what he's going to say. And so the spontaneity runs out. Women in particular are really drawn, when they're in love, they're really drawn to the spontaneity, right? That's why they want you to do like romantic gestures and take them on date night and whatever. Typically they want these kinds of things because they're spontaneous, and they don't want to have to tell you that they want it because then that ruins the spontaneity. So you have to do it of your own accord. You have to have agency and be spontaneous of your own accord, and that's romantic, and that keeps them interested. But it also goes down to your words and your thoughts. Right? If she knows exactly what you're going to say because she's just like you, it's like, oh, well, we share a sense of humor. It's like, yeah, but now you're both bored because you're both making the same jokes. It's much funnier if somebody makes a joke and you weren't expecting it, right? Because it's completely not what you were thinking. That's just a microcosm of what I'm talking about. It's like, if everything you say or most of what you say is already known to the woman you're with, it's like she's bored, or she's going to get bored and she's going to leave you. And probably a lot of you right now are looking back at your memories and going, that's why that relationship died. Yeah, that was why that relationship died. If your significant other is your complement, she's different to you, not in a grating way that's like horrendous to live with, but like someone you can tolerate, but like someone who kind of fascinates you but also frustrates you. It's like you don't know what they're going to say next. So you can have a marriage for 50 years and it's like, the wife is like, well, I never know what he's going to say. They'll typically have a really strong marriage because it's like, for her especially, whatever he says is going to be interesting. And it does work for men too. It's kind of boring if you know everything that your woman is thinking, what she's going to say. But it seems to affect women much more strongly. And so that's the appeal to that ancient hate to love storyline, right? It's everywhere. It's because you're going from that one extreme to the other, which is a journey in and of itself. But then also it's like, it makes sense because it's their complements. And that completes the erotic union. Erotic as in Eros. So if you're a fellow watching this and you're alone, because let's face it, you're watching a guy talk about a fucking anime in insane schizo detail. If you're looking for a woman and you're like, well, I like to read manga, so I go to manga reading club and I try and find women there, like, if you find a woman there, I mean, you found a unicorn, I guess, but she's probably not your one. You're probably going to have to go out to somewhere that's not normal for you, like a dance club or something, somewhere where you would never usually go. Most likely, that is where your significant other of a long period of time is going to be. She's probably not going to be in your interest bubble. But yeah, Rumiko is really kind of obsessed with that enemy to lover affair. She does it in a bunch of her storylines or things similar to it, like Urusei Yatsura. I mean, you have Lum is like super devoted to Ataru, but Ataru hates her to start with and grows to love her over time.
You're just trying to lure me into a false sense of security.
Oh, really? That's funny, considering all I have to do to make you obey is say the words, sit. Whoops, sorry about that.
Oh, man.
And there's that misuse of the power of the word that I was just talking about. Obviously, that one was more of an accident, but her kind of petulant teenage emotionality or rebelliousness will sometimes also take over, and she will abuse the power of the word, which is all just kind of highlights her journey as this irresponsible woman beginning her path to the state of Lady Wisdom.
Grandpa, Sota, Mom, they must be so worried. I gotta get back, one way or the other.
So these are actually crow demons. They're not raven demons. Ravens are a solar creature, solar symbol. Typically they were believed to be able to warn of great dangers, or were prophets or like messengers of the gods. In that case, the blackness of the creature represents the unknown phenomena or substances, which are then brought forth to mankind. However, the crow is its nocturnal opposite, so they're typically ill omens, the crows. They, feed upon the dead on the battlefield, and they are mischievous, they cause problems, they steal things from you. The crows have the far sight of clairvoyance, as crows and ravens typically do. Ravens have like a kind of an all-pervasive sight. They could see things that most can't. Crows also have this ability, but they kind of use it for evil. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. The crows are after the jewel, and they're able to find it very easily. What's perhaps noteworthy here is that specifically in Japan, ravens have positive familial aspects. They take care of their young. And right as they appear, Kagome is concerned with returning to her family. She has very familial concerns as well. And so a crow commonly being the negative version of the raven, it's interesting that they show up when Kagome is trying to seek out her family to return back to the world where she's not really needed, but she is wanted. And so the crows are almost like punishing her for trying to escape the journey, right? It's like if Frodo wanted to return to the Shire when he was 10 steps out of it and was suddenly, punished by some kind of force for doing so. It is interesting that they show up at that time, and Japan specifically has those symbolic connotations with the raven.
There's gotta be some kind of hint how to get home.
So unlike all the bird symbolism we saw with the previous episode, the kind of ascended variation, these crows are now the kind of darker version. In fact, she's even calling for her family the moment we see those birds.
Grandpa? Mom? Are you there? Sota! Booyo!
So we had kind of the good birds in the first episode, but now we're getting the evil birds in this one. So now Kagome, the bird in a cage, so to speak, is faced with this kind of other bird of fate that is going to tie her to InuYasha here very soon, although unintentionally, but...
Kagome! Kagome!
We looked everywhere, but she's not here.
We spoke of those who seek the sacred jewel, yet we spoke not nearly enough.
There. That's the well I came out of. Ow!
Boss, we caught the girl just like you said we should.
You're gonna catch cold if you go around half-dressed.
Don't do that. It'll rip.
Marry me and I'll buy you a new one.
Hand over the jewel right now.
Hey, boss, try taking it off in one swing, like a dandelion.
Let go!
Stop squirming. What do you do that for?
Boss! Boss! Where are you aiming?
That statue, I believe, is Gyanyin, also known as Avalokitesvara in India, or also known as Kannon in Japan, which is a lot easier to say. Side note, she is actually the deity that the Kannon camera company in Japan is named after. But anyway. Kannon, or Gyanyin, in Buddhism, is a bodhisattva, which, depending on who you ask, is either a very powerful saint or a god unto themselves. In the case of Lady Kannon, she attained the 10th and highest level of the path of Buddha, or wisdom, and chose to stay here in the terrestrial and temporal world to lead others to salvation. As you travel further east, she takes on more godly qualities, often associated with fertility, womanhood, birth. What's more considerable, however, is that all of Kannon's depictions in the various Buddhist traditions associate her with both compassion and the lotus. Both compassion and the lotus are closely associated with the heart. You're going to see why the heart thing is important in a minute, so get ready. The lotus is also a symbol for the womb and purity, as well as the heart and its subsequent opening. In another parallel with the previous episode, Kannon is specifically the one who hears the cries of the suffering and intervenes to save them. That's literally what her name means. And that is exactly what happened last time when Kagome cried for help and InuYasha awoke. Lastly, the lotus is the 8-petaled flower in traditional symbolism, thus sharing an image with Venus. Kannon being split apart here is really some genius foreshadowing, as not only are we about to see a kind of shattered or destroyed heart in a minute when the crow appears, but at the end of the episode, the sacred jewel, also representing the heart, will similarly be shattered. Each depiction of hearts being shattered or destroyed is due to Kagome's presence and actions specifically. This depiction of Kannon is her many-armed variation, and it not only visually represents what will happen to the jewel, in that arms stretching out represent the being extending and displacing itself, right? Dispersion, kind of similar to what I said about the power of the word earlier. But it also specifically is the statue variation indicating either hell or purgatory. Kagome's actions will soon lead the feudal world into a kind of hell, or a purgatory state under Naraku, until she can finally undo the damage in the end. And for those who don't know, the name Naraku means hell. And it's also very close to the Buddhist word Naraka, which also means hell or purgatory. Lady Kannon has also been associated with the Mother Mary, Theotokos, in Christianity.
She's who you want?
Wait! Can't you tell there's something wrong with your boss? Now get your butts in gear or next it'll be you two. Do I have to tell you everything?
Stupid girl. I don't care where she goes, but she took the jewel with her.
These other statues I can't identify visually. This is kind of a problem with reading so much about ancient traditions, as you don't always get pictures. So these two, I actually don't know who they are. If you know who they are, I'd be interested to know in the comments section below. I might even do an addendum in just a future episode, and I'll just address who they are and what they mean in the story, if anybody knows.
You okay?
We gotta go around. It's blocked.
Can you stand?
Thank you for saving me. Thank you.
I believe her helping the men is an addition from the anime that's not in the manga, which I actually like because it highlights Kagome's kind of purity of heart, which is going to be central to her character. So you get to see that right away. She's trying to help even people who were doing unsavory things to her and were going to kill her.
He's after the jewel. I wish I didn't have it. Thanks for nothing. Take him.
Kagome praying for help once again, as you would to Lady Kannon, perhaps.
InuYasha.
Out of here, boss!
Thanks again.
I can't believe you actually came.
Is it safe? Where's the jewel?
Jewel?
Oh, no! Tell me you did not just say that! Oh, what is that smell? It's like rotting meat or...
So Kaede tells Kagome that men with evil in their hearts will also seek the jewel, but turns out that it's a literal evil being within the heart. Obviously an ironic twist on what she said, and this image ties back to the shattered or destroyed heart, foreshadowed by the statue of Kannon. In this case, the heart is consumed by evil and darkness, which will also be the corrupting factor of the sacred jewel throughout the series. It's the darkness in the heart that decolors the sacred jewel.
What's that?
How much you want to bet that bird ripped his living heart out and made itself a bloody nest?
The bird made him a puppet.
Carrion crows don't fight on their own when there's dead bodies handy. They ain't so tough, but they're hella nasty!
It's getting away! Aren't you going after it?
Maybe you haven't noticed, but the world is full of monsters. You want I should go after them all? You want to start doing the fighting? Be my guest. In the meantime, where's the Oh! That stupid crow is making off with the jewel! What's wrong with you?
What do you mean, what's wrong with? Go after him! Hey!
What are you waiting for? Hurry up and shoot it!
Shoot? You're kidding, right? I've never used a bow in my life. Ah! It swallowed it! Fine! I'll try!
And after she takes out the crow, it's her turn.
Kagome's incoming clumsiness will ultimately be the undoing of a heartless InuYasha, as he will be forced to work with her to restore the jewel and grow fond of her over time. A good lesson that not all mistakes are for the worse.
Kikyo was a master archer. Take it in one shot!
I've told you my name's Kagome! Still, Kikyo, give me your strength. Here goes!
So yeah, going back to what I said earlier about bows and arrows, that the arrow sort of takes on the properties of the archer themselves and is foisted outwards onto the world. We see obviously Kagome has still a lot to go before she's able to do something like that. That outward expression of one's being ties into what I said earlier regarding the power of the word and its influential power as the substance of one's mind and heart, spreading outwards to penetrate and alter the world. In a second, we're about to see the jewel do the exact same thing, an outward expression which will penetrate and alter the world. Thematically, we have repeating motifs of the heart and what could be called exhalation or applicable dispersion. The heart, the real heart itself, pumps flux outward from itself, initiating action and vitality through the blood. So as the second part of the beginning of this story, this motif makes perfect sense. It indicates action and vitality being pumped forth in the sense of the narrative, and that's what draws you in. The action of the heart is not eternally an outward expression, though, as eventually the substances return to it, as in inhalation or condensation as the antithesis to dispersion. So the story kicks off with all these dispersion elements. Everything gets shattered and sent sprawling, but it inherently promises a journey in which someday everything will be made whole once more, will return to the center of the heart. And really, what more could you ask for from a fairy tale?
What the? I thought you said that she was a master archer.
She was! It's you that's the klutz! See how big it is?
The crow devouring yet another type of heart, much like Mistress Centipede in the previous episode. In the manga, the crow actually transforms into a more serpent-like creature with wings, so that signals a similar point of transformation for all parties involved, much like Mistress Centipede was serpentile. So we've got a double parallel to the previous episode.
Do it!
Ow!
I don't care what the old lady says. You are not Kikyo. You got that? I am so out of here.
It's almost a helpful thing that he says there, because everyone else is just calling her Kikyo and she wants to differentiate herself. And InuYasha is the only one who's really able to see that and declares that she is definitely not Kikyo. Although for reasons of incompetence rather than maybe he sees her heart, but...
Looking for your next meal already, huh?
InuYasha, no! You'll hurt the boy!
Back off! Iron Reaver Soul Dealer!
Where'd it go? Where's the jewel?
I'm so glad I took lessons.
How can she do that? She's fast.
She's an imp, I tell ya! A water imp!
A strange allusion to the water imp of the previous episode, but thematically appropriate given all that's happened. Kagome herself disturbs the waters of this relatively new world, but moves through the feminine substance with ease to fulfill her role in the new pairing.
She's not human at all!
Hang on! I've got you!
It's on its back now! I don't believe it!
They say teenage girls get excited.
Save the jewel, stupid! The jewel!
And yeah, we also get our first instance of them working together, again, as male and female complements, right? One is dealing with the threat and the other is saving the casualties. If it was just one of them by themselves, then one of those tasks would fail. Though we get a great visual reminder here that they're still not nearly a united being, as a river visually separates them in frame.
I was so scared! Thanks for saving me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Knew it! Hey, it's getting away!
What? I know. Hey, could I borrow your bow?
Sure. It's so far.
My butt, she's gonna hit it.
I can do this. I know it.
So a foot tends to represent stability and paths that you're on or walking towards, and uprightness of both, obviously, physical posture, but uprightness of like soul or character. A crow's foot in particular, I'm not sure I can actually speak to. I suppose it would just be a combination of that foot symbolism with the crow symbolism I gave earlier. Considering it does find its mark, the clairvoyance that comes with the crow and the paths indicated by the foot sort of combine there. But it introduces chaos into the world, because as we're about to see, the non-upright foot, it's upside down on the arrow, the non-upright foot is going to strike the jewel and shatter it. And so the crow, kind of as a symbol of chaos, it's a dark lunar creature, and in this case is literally of the underworld. We're now introduced to a darker path, and things are unstable. So this foot in particular kind of counteracts or inverts the usual meaning of the foot. It's also said that when Buddha was measuring out the universe, he took 7 steps. And so the Buddha's foot sort of represents the path to totality, which is ultimately what this crow's foot is going to open the door to for both Kagome and InuYasha, but not in the way that they wanted it to.
I get it. She's shooting the foot.
The foot can't help but be drawn by the jewel, which almost guarantees it'll hit. That light! Where is it coming from?
Lady Kaede, those lights!
Oh, aye, and I like not the looks of it.
I actually just noticed you can hear crow sounds in the distance here, which is a nice touch. And so, yeah, we're going to get it more into the symbolism of the Shikon jewel, probably with the episode with Midoriko, because that would make most sense. That's when you get the most lore about it. Although the very, very kind of basic substratum meaning of it is it represents the heart, or is a heart-like type of object. Obviously, it's the jewel of 4 souls, which has its own mysticism within Japan. Again, we're going to go over all that later. The heart and the soul are typically inextricably linked in most traditional mysticism and religions. So in this case, the arrow has once again pierced a heart, and its vulnerability in opening has caused major problems for, well, the entirety of Japan. The heart has been shattered, and so its pieces will have to be put back to place in the rightful order of things. And we're going to come to learn later throughout the series that the wishes that the jewel grants are based upon what's in your heart. So you can have a conscious wish that you want, but the dark parts of your heart as well, it takes those into account. So the jewel and the heart are linked in that way. And so somebody with purity of heart would be the only one feasible enough to handle the jewel. And that's going to be Kagome's kind of main defining trait, is purity of heart. And much like the heart as well, it can be purified or it can be tainted. And the jewel has a very strong mechanic regarding that. If you've ever seen Madoka Magica, the soul gems that they have there also represent almost the same thing. They're effectively a representation of the heart. The bright light that spews forth from the jewel is also something that is found in the heart, because the inside of the heart, like we were talking about before, there's the nous, the eyes of the soul are within the center of the heart. It's the most interior portion, which is dark, but when opened, exposed, when the eyes open, bright light pours through, and that's the light of enlightenment, or in a specifically introspective context, it's the silver light of the moon, as opposed to intuited knowledge granted by divine revelation, which is the light of the sun. There's 2 different lights of wisdom. The bright white light is typically the light of introspection. The silver moonlight, that is what pours forth from the opening of the heart. You kind of understand the depths of yourself and your connection to the divine. And that's what permits the light of the sun to enter the heart, the light of God, essentially. So there's 2 types of wisdom that you always try and pursue, the introspective, the internal, but also the extrospective, the external. That's how one achieves full transcendence. And basically all mystical systems will have some kind of mechanic to do with attaining wisdom by both lights. And so that's why we get the bright white light that comes forth from the jewel. Because the jewel is not actually a representative of God or the divine principle in any way. In fact, we find out that it's not actually really a good object at all, but it does enable the journeys of our various characters to undergo the growth that they need. And so they will undergo a lot of introspection. They will reach individuation through their mutual quests for the jewel or events surrounding the jewel. And so that's what justifies the white light of enlightenment that the jewel carries, essentially. And every single shard that blasts out carries that light that we saw. Again, there's still a lot more to go over with the Shikon jewel. I'm not going to do it all right now. But that's your very, basic rundown of what its purpose is in the story. And towards the end of the series, it gets a lot more interesting, I think.
Are you sure it fell around here? I don't think so!
I hope that's not what I think it...
And what do you think it is?
I think it's a shard from the jewel.
What did you say?
But yeah, that was episodes 1 and 2. We had psychopomps, we had liminality, transitions. We briefly touched upon archetypal masculinity and archetypal femininity. We'll probably go over that in more detail as we go through more episodes, because that needs more explanation. The entire universe breaks down into archetypal masculine and archetypal feminine. They're not simple categories at all. In fact, sexual metaphysics is probably one of the most complex topics on Earth. I don't intend on teaching you guys the full scope of that topic, but we're definitely going to go over quite a bit of it. There's a lot to do with what is essence, what is manifestation, how things participate in either masculine or feminine, and their interrelations in a cosmic sense. Every origin story in every religion has, in their cosmogony, they have masculine and feminine principles interacting at the very start. The only religion that doesn't do that I know of is atheism, but atheism also just takes being for granted, essentially, which is philosophically you can't do that. You have to actually justify it, but they don't want to, which is whatever. We don't have to debate that, but the point being, these necessities come into play, and it does influence how we talk about men and women and traditional fairy tales and all of that. So, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going over every single episode of InuYasha, because there's some filler episodes where really not a whole lot happens. But ideally, I would like to go through the whole series. If this is popular enough, if people are interested enough, let me know for sure. But yeah, hopefully there's enough interest there to actually talk about the entire series. It does go on a little long. Rumiko famously did not know how to end the series, and it was her most famous one, so she knew that she had to. She couldn't just kind of drop it like she did with Urusei Yatsura, where she just kind of quickly finished it up, or Ranma 1/2, where she just kind of quickly finished it up and was whatever. She knew that she had to actually come up with a definitive, conclusive, satisfying ending, and she did do that, but she kind of delayed things, and there are plots on it that just sort of make the series drag on a bit longer. It's still worth watching, don't get me wrong. If you've never seen the whole show, I highly recommend it, or you can read the manga too. Definitely watch the whole thing. I've already spoiled a bunch of it for you, I'm sorry, but there's still a lot that hasn't been spoiled. There's tons of stuff I haven't spoiled yet, so if you have not seen it, go watch it, then come back here, watch whatever else I've done on this channel, and yeah. Bye.